A new national poll out shows Hillary Clinton in a dead heat with Donald Trump. Now, this is a new Reuters Ipsos poll that was released earlier today, and it shows Hillary Clinton with 41% support compared to Donald Trump's 40% support. Now, according to this poll, 19% of voters are still undecided. But if you look at that, that's within the margin of error. Not good. Not good. And this isn't the only one. Recent polls from different places have shown that the race between Clinton and Trump is getting very, very narrow. There's another one that I released that was released yesterday by Quinnipiac that I talked about, and it showed Trump and Hillary Clinton neck and neck in Ohio, Florida, and Pennsylvania. Pretty important states. In fact, you cannot win a presidency unless you get at least 2 of those 3 states. Not good, right? Now, of course, Democrats are kind of brushing these polls off. Ignore the polls, man. Ignore it. It's fine. You can't tell this far out anyway. I mean, even though, we use polls as a predictive measure, and we've used polls this far back before. Look, it's not as if we have a year till the election, okay? It's November, and November, after the summer, it's getting closer. Polls this far back do have some sort of predictive measure, or else they wouldn't do that. But of course, once again, they're brushing them off. Now, there's a couple of reasons. For one, Trump kind of sucks with Latinos. And he kind of sucks when it comes to the black vote. However, with independents and Republicans, he seems to do pretty well. So don't discount these polls completely. Now, especially when you're talking about online polling versus in-person polling. And there's actually a really fascinating article that I read about this. Let me read you some of that. In matchups between Trump and Hillary Clinton, Trump does much better in polls conducted online. Now, online polls, of course, if you guys have done this, you guys are all online. You guys have done these polls before, you know. You click a button on the screen. That's it. Computer screen, rather than talk to a person, like person to person or on a cell phone or whatever, right? It's different. Now, an aggregation by Real Clear Politics of 10 recent phone calls gives Clinton a 9-point lead over Trump. However, the combined results for the YouGov and Morning Consult polls, which rely on online surveys only, Clinton's lead is reduced to 4 points. Now, why does this actually matter? Well, because an online survey resembles an anonymous voting booth far more than what you tell a pollster does. Basically, well, I'll take a line from House. Everybody lies. Everybody lies. So, if you're embarrassed about voting for Trump, but actually do believe in some of the things that he talks about, for example, trade or whatever, you're going to be like, oh, Trump, he's an asshole. Pull that lever for Trump. That's what people do. People lie. And this article goes on to explain this. In a May 2015 report, Pew Research analyzed the differences between results derived from telephone polling and those from online internet polling. Pew determined that the biggest differences in answers elicited via these 2 survey modes were on questions in which social desirability bias, that is, quote, the desire of respondents to avoid embarrassment and project a favorable image to others, played a role. That's amazing. It's the most common sense thing in the world, but also, when you think about it, a lot of people haven't thought about it. And so when you bring it up, you're like, of course, it makes sense. People will say one thing and do another because they don't want to seem like they're assholes. And right now, Trump's an asshole. But on a couple of issues, he's actually raised good points. For example, money in politics and trade, like TPP. He doesn't actually want to do anything about it based on his policy positions. But talking about these issues, saying how terrible they are, well, that gets people riled up. And it gets people to agree with him. And then, of course, he says the outrageous stuff, like some Mexicans are rapists and criminals, well, you hear your friends talking like, dude, that Trump guy's racist. Well, I like what he says on trade, man. Yeah, that Trump's totally an asshole. Trump at the ballot box. Or Trump on an online survey. It makes perfect sense. Now back to the article. In a detailed analysis of phone versus online polling in Republican primaries, a man named Kyle A. Drop, the executive director of polling and data science at Morning Consult, writes, quote, Trump's advantage in online polls compared with live telephone polling is 8 or 9 percentage points among likely voters. This difference, Drop notes, is driven largely by more educated voters, those who would be most concerned with social desirability. So people who are like, yeah, I know Trump's an asshole. I'm not going to tell my friends I voted for him, but I'm going to vote for him because Hillary Clinton, I think, in my opinion, since I'm more educated on the issues, is a terrible candidate. Now, I may or may not agree with that, and you may or may not agree with that, but you can understand the logic that brings you to that. For example, Hillary Clinton, there's a school of thought where it says Hillary Clinton will actually be worse for progressive causes because she'll unilaterally disarm liberals into adopting neoliberal policies. And the only reason that people would vote for her is to keep Trump out of the White House because of the fear of Trump that she routinely brings up as a reason to vote for her. It makes sense. It makes sense when you put it like that. Yes, she could do what Obama did and disarm liberals. Say, okay, well, we'll go along with Barack Obama and, the guy who basically approved 94% of the Bush tax cuts, put them permanently into law, something that Bush could never do. Yeah, we'll support that guy because, hey, at least he wasn't Mitt Romney. I think that's what a lot of people, Bernie Sanders supporters, who would have the open possibility of voting for Trump, I do think that's what some of them think. And there's a certain logic in that, as much as I hate to say. Now, these findings suggest that Trump will head into the general election with support from voters who are reluctant to admit their preferences to a live person in a phone survey, but who may well be inclined to cast a ballot for Trump on Election Day. Now, to bring it all back, that's problematic for Hillary Clinton. Now remember, Hillary Clinton, aside from Trump, she has the highest negative favorability ratings in this race, but is also viewed less trustworthy in many polls by sometimes 9 to 10 points behind Donald Trump. Now, Trump spends his entire life lying his ass off on pretty much everything. Earlier today, called him Bernie Sanders, crazy Bernie. He's going to tax everybody at 95%. Well, that's not true. A simple Google search can show you that his tax plan, the highest bracket in his tax plan, is 52% for people making over $10 million a year. What's that 95% at? Oh, it doesn't exist. And by the way, those are marginal tax rates. 95% of Americans will actually save money. They'll have more income under Bernie Sanders' plans. And they'll have universal health care. And they'll have tuition-free college. And they'll have a higher minimum wage, et cetera, right? Trump lies his ass off. But he's still viewed more trustworthy than Hillary Clinton. That's bad. That is terrible. If he's considered more trustworthy than she is, then this is a big problem for Democrats in November if Hillary Clinton gets this nomination. This is your warning sign. Consider this your warnings, Democrats. You should not dismiss these polls. This is not a normal election. Okay, this is an outsider election. For fuck's sakes, we have a reality show personality running for office on the Republican side. And the last time Republicans ran a TV personality? Remember that? That was Ronald Reagan. Now, I'm not saying Trump is Ronald Reagan. He is no Ronald Reagan. But against an establishment Democrat that few people like and fewer people trust, Trump could actually pull off an upset like Ronald Reagan and win his way into the White House. And that should scare the crap out of Democrats everywhere.